Let's get that pledge done. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have some outstanding news. And by the way, anybody tuning in fresh, if you're not used to these, it's dark because it's dark. You can't see me because it is actually dark. And I'm going hiking. So that taken care of. As you might have seen by the thumbnail, we do have a sponsor finally for the next event. It's going to be Next Insurance, which is now Ergo Next, ERGO Next, because I guess Ergo bought them. Took a little while to kind of get to know the new marketing people and to convince them that we're a community they want to invest in. I don't know why it took so much, but the good news is they've said yes to the next HCC 2026 Texas. And the one after that will be HCC 2026 Colorado. Eventually, just down the line. Don't get too excited yet. I gotta find sponsors for that too. But yeah, so it's gonna be April 16th through 19th. We'll be in Texas, and the particular state park, Bonham State Park, barracks that we're going to is actually a pretty ideal setup, like a really, truly ideal setup. It's 4 cabins with barracks, bunks in them, which is good because we tend to have like a 3-to-1 ratio of men to women, and we're probably going to segregate by sex. So you can bring your wives, because I don't think everybody wants to sleep with their wives in an open room full of men and women. So we'll probably segregate by sex and have essentially 3 cabins for men and 1 cabin for women. And if we need to change that up, we can. There's also a staff cabin. So I'm probably going to put this particular event down as being not for kids, simply because of the group sleeping arrangements. However, I am going to check into the staff cabin and try to find out if there are private rooms in the staff cabin. And if there are, maybe we can have some people be able to bring their kids, especially if some of y'all maybe just have to, like you're, single homeschooling parents or something, and you just don't have another choice. So those would be special case scenarios if they happen. But the good news is this thing is sponsored, man, and we can hold up to 94 people. I doubt we'll get that high, but we can hold up to 94 people. I got the official approval from Next Insurance yesterday. We got here 𝗟𝗪𝗟𝗟72. It's a good year for pickup trucks right there, 72. Good morning to you. It's a very pretty house there. I shouldn't say I almost bought it. I considered buying it once a long time ago when it was for sale. It's a horse property, which just means you can legally have horses on it. It's like a big church on the inside. Getting some of this coffee in. I always just walk and talk and hold my coffee till it gets cold, and then I'm drinking it on the way back to the house when it's already cold. Got my 𝗪𝗪bot way more capable. My 𝗪𝗪bot, 𝗪𝗪bot, open claw, whatever you want to call it. My little digital AI agent does some pretty crazy stuff. It's kind of neat. It's definitely doing real work for me that actually saves me time and money. And in fact, it figured out that bulletproofhandyman.com was not viewable by Google or itself or bots or any. It was viewable by people essentially, but anything electronic that tried to look at that site, including Google's crawler, which looks at your site to gather information about it, to decide whether or not it's able to, recommend things on your site to drive traffic and search results. It wasn't really able to see my site. So we got all that fixed up yesterday. And man, this bot is motivated to get stuff done. And it's pretty surprising all the things it's able to go do on its own, even without me giving it lots and lots of very special instructions or tools or skills. Jay Rory said, I'm in the Nashville area in the middle of setting up my business, working full-time as a truck driver right now and working on this on the side. You got to get out of that truck, man, but I think you already know that. Driving a truck will kill you. I've seen so many people's health just go so far downhill so fast sitting in a truck. I even wonder if it wasn't better back in the day when the trucks were literally physically harder to drive, just required more physical effort to keep them doing all the things you wanted them doing, and where the drivers were maybe not always, but semi-frequently involved in the loading and unloading and stuff. Because man, I've seen a lot of people really go downhill while driving a truck. Well, you're sitting all day. It's the same as getting an office job. It's not worse than getting an office job, but it's just, you can't just sit all day. So I wish you luck, man. And you've probably already seen this on my videos, but don't hesitate to reach out at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Any questions you have. You said you're in you're in Nashville too, man. I'll tell you what, Nashville is the place to be for starting a handyman business. I would highly suggest, if you haven't already, go to foundersandfathers.com and get signed up there. You're going to see a thing about $10 a month. If you don't have that money, it's not a big deal. There's like a little waiver you can fill out. It's auto-approved, basically. But you'll be able to find some other people in Nashville on that site for sure. That's where 𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗡 is. He really knows what he's doing, and he's willing to be a local mentor. There's a few other guys around there too. We did one of our big campouts right across the state line in Georgia. I still called it the Tennessee Handyman Cabin Stay Weekend, but it was technically in Georgia. It's just Tennessee sounds cooler. Oh, you're a veteran too. Cool. Right on. What service? What'd you do? Where'd you go? Tell me some stuff since no one else is in here talking. Also, ask handyman questions or whatever you want. I'm always telling people that email me, want to know if I can mentor them, like personally. And I just don't have time for that. I don't have time to mentor myself personally, much less other people. But I always tell everybody, look, man, come to the live streams, because half the time I don't get enough comments to keep me with stuff to talk about. Come to a live stream, you can just hog the whole live stream, like in a good way. You can, don't worry about whether you think your questions are stupid or not. Ask all the damn questions. You can get me for a couple hours a day, most days. The days that I'm doing this hike anyways. I hike with my boy about half the days. We share custody with his biological father, so he's not always here. When he is, he and I go hiking on our own, and I don't live stream those. And then when he's not here, I'm doing these hikes. So it's pretty even 50-50 distribution. Army EOD. No, dude, Robbie was EOD in the Army. Robbie, oh, why am I brain farting Robbie's last name? Now I'm confused because I want to say 𝗬𝗢𝗨'𝗟𝗟, but I think that's a Robbie I went to school with as a kid. Anyways, there's literally an interview on my channel with Robbie. Robbie was EOD in the Army, and he's now not too far from Nashville running a handyman business. So you could end up becoming buddy with the other Robbie Nashville handyman guy. The other Robbie EOD Army Nashville handyman guy. What else we got going on? Paul's Handyman, good morning, sir. Edward, good morning, Ray and everyone. Hey, Edward, we got 𝗬𝗪𝗨 in here. He's in the Nashville area. I told him to go to Founders and Fathers and sign up and just request a waiver for the $10. I'm not too worried about that. But for him to go sign up there so that he can try to get in touch with you, hopefully, since you said you were willing to kind of, and I know you're not going to be like starting anybody's business for him, but you mentioned being willing to mentor locally. So 𝗬𝗪𝗨72 is trying to start his business, and he's in the Nashville area. Philip said, good morning to you. 𝗬𝗪𝗨 said, yeah, he was probably stationed at Fort Campbell as well. Yeah, y'all might be besties for all I know. Well, not besties. You'd probably know another Robbie. You'd know right away, but y'all could have known each other for all I know. I wish I could remember. I know his last name. Most people, if I can remember your first name, in fact, half the time I only remember it as a combination, but I'm just brain farting on Robbie's last name now. Maybe it is True Love, but I don't think it is. I think I went to school with a Robbie True Love. Paul's Handyman said that's awesome, starting a business at 72. Oh, I don't think he's 72 years old. Could be, you never know. 𝗬𝗪𝗨 said I got out in 2015. That's cool. Also, by the way, Edward and Paul's Handyman, anybody else who just got in here, I'll keep bringing this up over and over. I have an official approval from Next Insurance for our cabin stay weekend, our bunkhouse. I'm going to call it a bunkhouse weekend probably in Texas. Either way, HCC 2026 Texas. That naming convention is going to stick around. All of these events where I travel to you guys are going to be HCC, then the year, and then the state. Because I don't think we'll ever be doing the same state twice in 1 year. So that should be a naming convention that can carry forward. And then some of them will be campouts. Some of them will be cabin stays. Some of them will be bunkhouses. This one will be a bunkhouse. 𝗬𝗪𝗨's 45. I'm 45 too. Be turning 46 in November. But yeah, we got another event scheduled finally. Anybody, I guess half of y'all, probably most of y'all don't know. When I had one I was trying to plan for March, and it just fell through because I couldn't get a sponsor for it. And my attitude was, well, if I can't get a sponsor for it, that'll be okay, because these things are valuable enough. People will pay, you know, if I don't want to make any money off of it at all, but just cover my cost, or at least not lose very much. People will be willing to pay, you know, $150 to cover 3 nights, 4 days, plus all of their food and lodging. And it turns out I was wrong. So I had to cancel that one. And now I'm just waiting for sponsors for these instead of trying to host them where there's a ticket that you have to buy. But good news, Next Insurance is hosting this one. It just took a while to get through to their marketing people. I have a particular contact that I deal with, and I think he used to just have more direct access to his like higher level marketing management people. And they kind of had a history with me and with you guys, with the community, showing that they had a good ROI. You know, they got more people getting insurance quotes when they sponsored our campouts. And it was easy to say yes. This time it took months, But they have finally said yes. So food and lodging, both provided. All y'all got to do is show up. I'll tell you what, I don't know how I'm going to limit the number of people. What do we got here? Hey, Mike. Good morning, Mike. Good to see you. I don't know how I'm going to limit the number of people because we can hold technically up to 94. We definitely don't want to do that. We don't want to literally max out every bunk. I'm sure there'll be 5 that don't work. But I got to figure out money-wise. I can already tell I'm going to lose money on this one, which is okay because it builds the community and everything. And if I can basically break even and only be out like $500, that's not a bad deal. But how much I'm out is going to heavily depend on how many people show up, because the pricing for the cabins, the bunkhouses, is, you know, set. That's going to cost me almost exactly $3,000. But after that, I got to buy my ticket to get there. I got to get a rental car. And then most importantly, I got to buy groceries. And not just groceries, but groceries and disposable plates and cups and silverware. I'm going to have to probably work with some of y'all, whoever's willing to volunteer to bring some stuff. We're going to need some kitchen items because I doubt the kitchen. There's a commercial kitchen, by the way. We do have a, what do you call it? A group hall. I want to call it a dining hall, but the park calls it a group hall, which is what it is. It's a group hall. So we've got a group hall that can host, I don't know if it'll host 94 people. I think it's designed to host everybody. But we've got a group hall with tables and chairs and a commercial kitchen. The thing is, though, I found out from experience in a cabin in Tennessee that just cooking for 16 people, or maybe that one was more like 20, I can't remember the exact number now, but cooking for 16 to 20 people, and don't get me wrong, I had a food truck in the past. I know what it takes to do bulk cooking in a business sense when you have a whole system built around it. But to just kind of like wake up in the morning and go make breakfast for 20 people is not exactly easy. And by the time you're done with that, and you're done with all the conversation, and you're kind of cleaning up the mess from breakfast and putting everything away and taking out the trash, it's basically time to start prepping for lunch. So I can't imagine what it's going to be at this event. If there's, who knows how many people show, but let's say there's 60. That's a lot. So I'm going to be probably asking for volunteers to help out. Nobody's required at all. But what is going on up here? Well, I hear a goat up here, which is fine, except I just don't usually hear a goat up here, and I haven't seen any goats up here. Could be a sheep too. It actually sounds a little more like a sheep. Anyhow, I will almost certainly be asking for some volunteers to help out with all the cooking and stuff, and bringing some, you know, spatulas and all that good stuff too. Edward said, 𝗟𝗘𝗓72, welcome to the Handyman community. I'm also in the Nashville area. 𝗟𝗘𝗓 said, sorry, stepped out of the truck for a minute. Richard said, hello, friend. Hello, Richard. Paul Dardo. Good morning, Paul. I already texted Paul yesterday to tell him that we got approval for this event, so he doesn't even need to hear the news. Richard Henry said, I'd like to see Nashville, Tennessee. 𝗟𝗘𝗓 said, good morning, Edward. And Richard Henry said, one day soon. We're supposed to get a little cold snap here soon, so that'll make me very happy. It might be the last cold snap we get. Oh, and by the way, as far as location, I know Bonham State Park is a little bit of a drive for some of y'all. It's going to be upwards of, well, for Austin, which is kind of where this camp out was. I was hoping this camp out would be at one point. I would have said it's for my Austin crowd. But looking at the larger Texas area, the issue I ran into is with the Texas state parks and their barracks systems, which is the only way I can afford to be able to host a whole bunch of people all at once. With their whole system right now, as of yesterday, like I got approval for this event called Texas State Parks immediately, looked at all the barracks in the state of Texas, and now there are a couple that I don't want to use because of the way they're laid out. They're going to severely limit the number of people. But of the parks that were acceptable to me, Bonham is the only one that has any availability at all during the month of April. You have to go all the way out to May after that. And I need to get these as close together as possible because I'm already working on, who was it? Was it Blue Vine? I feel like it wasn't. No. Well, I am working on Blue Vine, but yesterday I sent off a particular email, 𝗬𝗢. If you look at my channel, I dropped a video yesterday for 𝗬𝗢, which is like a guided tutorial for how to set up a business phone app on your personal phone, so you don't need, two different phones. But I did that guided thing on 𝗬𝗢 for a business phone. They're really happy about the whole thing. They're excited to be working with me and supporting the community. Hold on, Edward's texting me. Oh, that's weird. Edward can't log into Founders and Fathers. Don't worry, I'll get it figured out today, sir. Edward, if you could shoot me an email, not because I don't care and I'm gonna just poop it out of my brain, but because I'm just an idiot and I forget a lot of stuff. But I'm always checking my email and staying on top of sequentially whatever's in the inbox. So shoot me an email and I'll go see what's going on with that. I logged in yesterday. I'm pretty sure I did. Oh, where was I at? Oh yeah, so 𝗬𝗢 was, I published the video and they were pretty excited. By the way, if y'all want to go support them, go check out their business phone. If it ain't for you, don't get it. But I picked them because I used them actually for Founders and Fathers. I wanted to have a way for everybody to be receiving SMS updates for when the Founders and Fathers meetings were and events and things like that. So I had to have a phone. Well, I wanted a phone SMS system. And to do that, you have to have a business phone and business phone number as far as the FCC is concerned. And you have to go through a bunch of regulations. So that's what I did. I found 𝗬𝗢. They were the ones that I liked the most that I ended up using. Then 2 weeks later, randomly, they reached out. Unrelated, completely unrelated, just by chance. 2 weeks later, they reached out to Bulletproof Handyman, not to the Founders and Fathers email address, but to Bulletproof Handyman, wanting to work together. But anyways, they're excited about working with me. They like the website, the community. They just like the whole deal. So they want to know how they can work with me more. And I'm like, well, you could pay me to do a standalone video. But I mean, we just did one, and there's not a whole lot to say about, getting a VoIP phone app on your phone for your business. Not a lot to say about that. So I don't think you're going to see any additional ROI from having me do shorts or anything like that. Said I can do a mass email. I think I got about 8,000 or 9,000 of y'all. Maybe it's up to 10 by now. I haven't looked at the numbers in a while. Call it 10,000, people I can shoot a mass email out to. That's probably helpful if they want to do that. But I'm like, if you really even an ambassadorship, I don't think works because they're not a high ticket price kind of thing. And so for them to be able to cut a deal with me that would give them exclusivity and like one long form video per month and all that other good stuff, for it to be worth my time, the amount of money that I would have to charge them for that, I don't think they would see a good return on. Again, because there just isn't much to say about getting a phone. Kind of like insurance, and that's why Next Insurance is always sponsoring these campouts. That's their way of getting additional exposure and supporting the community. So that's what I'm pitching to 𝗪. And what I'm pitching now, you know, the deliverables they get when they sponsor is kind of like how I keep mentioning 𝗪 and Next right now. When you sponsor a campout or cabin stay or whatever, when you sponsor things for this channel like that, it gives me something to talk about, because there's nothing to talk about with just insurance or phones. There's no interesting topics to fill the void and keep mentioning them. So I think there's a chance, and what I'm giving them is I said, hey, you know, I'd like to start planning the next Handyman HCC 2026 Colorado, because I've been promising my guys in Denver and the Colorado area that I'd come up there. Said I'd like to start planning that now. Normally you would get a 6 to 8 week runway where I'm talking about you nonstop, because I'm talking about the event nonstop. But if you want to commit early to doing something like that, let's say in June, if you want to commit early, I'll start talking about it now. And then you get like up to, I think it would be, depending on where I put it, close to 4 months of me thanking your business for supporting the community for 4 months. That's a good ROI. That makes it so that everyone who watches the channel, if they've watched much of anything, by the time they get around to starting their business, they're just going to know your name like the back of their hand. I was going to say like the back of your hand. I know your name like the back of your hand. What about the back of my hand? No, I don't know the back of my hand too well, but I know the back of your hand. Edward said, good morning, Paul. Jay Rory said, yesterday, Ray, you were talking about making connections with local businesses. I currently work with local builder supply company, and second what you were saying yesterday. Oh, good. Thanks, man. Yeah. Paul Dardo said, good morning, Edward. Yeah, I think, and when I say small, I mean, you could be a small local business who's grown to have, 23 employees and a big old yard and a big old warehouse and, 3 forklifts and all kinds of stuff. You can still be a small business. The point is, talking about local businesses that are not chains, where the owner of that business is most likely at least a few times a week in the building doing business. Those are the kinds of businesses that I would propose y'all hook up with locally. They're going to be the ones that are more than happy because you keep their business alive. And because that's tangible to them. They can see your face and shake your hand and know that you're one of the people that enable them to keep that business going. They're willing to do some extra stuff for you that a bigger corporation just isn't going to be willing to do. Just a little bit of that sunrise for y'all. Edward said, sent that email to you with a screenshot. Thank you, sir. Paul said, what's the date for this upcoming campout? This is going to be April 16th through 19th. Paul's handyman said, it's a cool sunrise. Yeah, I'm telling y'all all the time, I'm not a fan of Arizona. Of all the places in the United States that I would pick to live, I would not pick anywhere west. So let's say you draw a line from Dallas all the way down to Austin, right? I would not live anywhere south of, let's say, the upper border of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. I really wouldn't pick anywhere south of that line, and I wouldn't pick anywhere west of that line from Dallas to Austin, all the way to the damn ocean, to tell you the truth. I don't want to be in California. Don't want to be in southern Arizona. Yes, there are some mountains down here that are nice. Same thing with New Mexico. New Mexico, yes, does have some really, really nice mountainous ponderosa pine kind of areas. And those are cool. Maybe I'd pick a tiny place in there. But yeah, generally speaking, if I was just looking at a map of the US, picking where to plop myself down, Tucson would be about the last place I would pick. It's just hot and dry, and there's not, you know, I like life. And yeah, the scarcity of life in the desert somehow makes it extra beautiful, you know, when it's exploding and it's vibrant, but it's rarely exploding and it's rarely vibrant. It's usually just hot and dry and poisonous. But I will tell you what, we get the prettiest sunrises and sunsets that you can imagine. We really do. Every morning is a beautiful sunrise. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful sunrise. And every single evening is a very beautiful sunset. Really, without exception. I will tell y'all, as excited as I was to be, I had a meeting with someone from 𝗪𝗛𝗪, 𝗪𝗪𝗪 being the site that I use for building software, using AI to build software. As excited as I was to have some meetings with them, I think I'm officially throwing in a towel and saying nothing ever came of it. Nothing came of it at all. I feel relatively certain, you never know, but I feel kind of confident that I think they just watched a few live streams, saw me wearing a MAGA hat, and decided that I wasn't the type that they can work with. And that's okay. I'm not claiming that that is what happened. I'm just saying that's what I feel confident happened, because they were extremely excited to talk to me. They did follow through and have the meeting with me, but I could tell in the meeting already, it felt like the person who showed up to have the meeting with me was doing so reluctantly, almost as if she was just sort of following through on her word and showing up, but not necessarily interested in working with me. And I don't even know what capacity they wanted to work with me in. I would imagine it would be just generally speaking for the sake of me promoting them for you guys to build your websites on and stuff. But whatever the deal was, basically after that meeting, well, they've ghosted me. I was gonna say kinda ghosted me. It's not kinda. I mean, my emails don't get returned as if they're not deliverable. They haven't blocked me, but they're definitely are not replying to, because they asked me for some follow-up information, and I sent them the follow-up information, and, you know, didn't get anything back. And then I sent some more, didn't get anything back. Then I finally finished my whole media kit for them to look at and emailed them the link to that. Still didn't get anything back. So I'm guessing it's the MAGA thing. That's a consequence that I've been aware of since day one. I had to make a choice about whether I was going to be me, authentically me, on this channel, or if I was going to be a brand that other brands want to work with, because those aren't the same thing. And I decided I was going to have to be me if I was going to feel good about doing this in the long run. So that's one of the consequences. But I gotta say, it makes me sad because I feel like I could have and would have been excited to send them tons and tons and tons of traffic. I would have been excited to use their platform to build some sort of handyman website builder program that y'all could, you know, click into and kind of have a template there, and then be able to, without any web development skills, build your website there. Oh, there's more of that pretty sunrise. was also considering building like an app, again, one that y'all could utilize and fork off of, where you would have an actual app. So your clients would actually download your app onto their phone. And anytime they wanted the handyman, they just type in handyman, like searching through their apps, and you'd come up. It would guarantee they always have access to you. And you never know what the future brings, but I'm gonna go ahead and call it and say, yeah, they've ghosted me. We won't be doing any business together, which sucks because I love their product. Clearly, I love their product. We're not doing business together, and yet I'm still talking about them. So if any of y'all do want to build software and you don't know how, Replit is the place to go for that. But they don't want nothing to do with me, though. Paul's Handyman said, okay, so question for whoever can answer. I'm currently in a transition phase. I'm getting ready to change jobs, and I do my business on the side. And while I'm trying to change jobs and trying to change up my insurance so I can hire an employee part-time and put my truck on a business policy. I assume there's, oh, there we go. So my question is, would it be better to hold off on distributing a packet because I need to increase my funds to be able to keep up with what I have going on? I don't know if there's more coming for that question. I imagine there is. I will chime in right away and kind of say two completely opposing things at the same time. Thing number one is I'll go like the safe route. Thing number one is you do you, man. Like, take it slow, take it easy, do it at your own pace, methodically. Paul Dardeau did that. You know, he started out very methodically from having a job. But I just quit my job and dove in, you know, and I didn't have any kind of channel like mine to provide me any information at all. Nobody who was on YouTube talking about a handyman business when I started mine, nobody was talking about how to actually do it. They were talking about what their days were like. You know, they're giving you some insight into what the life of a handyman felt like on a day-to-day basis. But nobody was talking about how to do it. And I just jumped in and did it. So what I'll say is, you do you. But ask yourself consistently, am I afraid to start my handyman business? Am I keeping it part-time and doing it slowly because jumping in would mean I could fail? And as long as I don't fully jump in, I can't fully fail. Just pay attention and ask yourself that question. I'm not saying what the answer is. I'm just telling you to make sure you know what the answer to that question is, because you want to be making the decisions that you make for the right reasons. And I definitely don't want anybody who's not ready to be trying to jump into something they're not ready for. But if this is what you want, holding off on getting clients is kind of the same thing as saying, should I try to not succeed? Should I try to make sure that I don't have enough work to go full time because I'm changing jobs? So that's all I'll say is, let's just call it know thyself. Just make sure you know yourself. Beautiful sunrise right there. Never fails. Paul's Handyman said, just asking for advice on how to proceed. Y'all jump in and throw in all your advice too. There's something to be said for both routes. But I'll tell you what, man, the way most guys go from part-time to full-time is they have too much work. They have this pile of clients who are saying, hey, I like your pricing. I want to pay you as much money as you're asking for. I want to give you, I mean, they shouldn't know that you're $100 an hour, but pretend like they did. Essentially what they're saying when they want to keep sending you work, despite not being cheap, is they're saying, hey, I want to give you $100 an hour and I'll keep you busy for 100 hours. Here's 100 hours at $100 an hour. And you're saying, I don't know, this other guy over here at my regular job, he's offering me 23 an hour compared to your 100 an hour with a little bit of time off and some health insurance. So that's kind of how I look at it. What a beautiful morning, my God. It ain't windy, it ain't cold, it ain't hot. It is just gorgeous out here. Paul's Handyman said, okay, on that note, I have a lot of bills, which is why I'm keeping a job. The business isn't big enough to go full time. Oh yeah, no, I agree. You got to work more. Like the transition period does involve, if you have a full-time job, for most of y'all, the transition period does involve working 40, 50, however many hours a week you have to work at your full-time job, and working 30 or 40 hours a week at your handyman business. I guess the bigger point that I'm making is just simply that if you don't get yourself enough clients, that you're out of time. If you have plenty of time for your full-time job and plenty of time for your handyman business because you kept the number of clients down, you'll never reach that point where you wake up and go, what am I doing still going to this job when I've got all these clients? So my advice, if I have to pin it down, I'll just say my advice is get the clients until you get buried in work, until you literally wake up and go, my God, I have a mountain of work at $100 an hour that these people are begging me to do, and I'm having to tell them all no because I'm going to this other job that's paying me $25 an hour. If you don't acquire the clients to create the demand, you'll never have the demand that forces you over. So I'm not saying quit your job. I did. I quit my job. I had 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks at $25 an hour. I had a friend that wanted a kitchen, and I told her I could get her a kitchen installed for $25 an hour, 40 hours a week for 2 weeks, and she pays for the materials. And we priced it all up, and I quit my job, and I showed up at her house on day one with 2 weeks of work in front of me, 2 weeks of guaranteed paycheck in front of me, just going, all right, well, I got 2 weeks to find some clients, and I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I was advertising. Back then, you could still go on Facebook Marketplace and just post an ad for handyman services, without having to pay for it. Or I think you had to pay for it, but I mean, it was like $5. And then later on, they moved out of that, and they partnered with Handy, which is now owned by Angie, and a whole different thing. But anyways, $25 an hour, 40 hours a week for 2 weeks. I was advertising on Craigslist and Facebook, just running around. I was just a chuck in a truck. I was 100%. 5 years ago, I was just a chuck in a truck. I also had a bunch of bills, and I worked my ass off, but I also got lucky. I met the right clients at the right time. I placed the right ad. I worded it the right way, which got me the right phone call, which led to the next client, and 5 years later, things worked out nicely. Jay Rory said, have to step out for a minute and make a delivery. I'll be back in a few. Right on. Right on, right on. Paul's Handyman said, okay, next question. I prefer to meet people face to face, but I'm wondering if making phone calls and emailing people might not be a decent way to get traction. Depends on who you're calling and emailing. If you're talking about property managers, It depends on how badly, or let's say if you're talking about property managers or real estate agents, those two combined. The answer to that question depends on how much you want to get them as a client. Made it to the road, by the way. So here's how I look at it. If you email, they have all your information, right? You can just sort of cold email everything to everybody, and they have all your information. So you've knocked off one really important part of the puzzle, which is for them to simply have your information and know that you exist. The reason I recommend to do it in person is because I think your biggest hurdle is not the information. They'll get the information from you if they want to hire you. It's just a matter of asking you for the information. The hurdle you have to get over is getting them to want to hire you. Because if they haven't met you in person, and I'm just speaking to you from the same viewpoint that many property managers have spoken to me, and also what I just understand to be the general lay of the land, which is most people in the trades, doesn't matter if they're licensed electricians, licensed plumbers, framers, all of them, everybody in the trades, licensed and unlicensed, including handymen, they're generally not, they don't come across as the kind of sophisticated and civilized person that you feel comfortable bringing into your home. And with a property manager or a real estate agent, you know, when somebody, whether they reach out or somebody else reaches out, yeah, they want to know your pricing. Yeah, they want to know what services you offer. But what they're really thinking about is this a normal guy? Please let this be a normal guy. Please let this be somebody who gets frequent haircuts and showers daily and doesn't have face tattoos and so many other things. There's just so much about you that they're worried about because they're trying to send you into homes with tenants, and they want their tenants to feel comfortable. And plus, they're just going to judge you physically. That's just what people do. I do it too. If somebody looks a certain way, I know a lot about them. You can claim that I don't. You can claim that I'm making assumptions. But the truth is, I can look at a person and tell a lot about them. So can you, whether you think you can or not. So they're going to judge you. And that's kind of what you want, is you want to get the haircut, clean the car, iron the clothes, put on a smile, trim your beard or whatever, show up looking pretty decent. And then they end up having your information and they've met you. And that's the important part, is that they've met you. So if you're not in person, you're just one of many people. You're the equivalent of a Craigslist ad, but now you're a Craigslist ad that comes with a W-9 and proof of insurance. But outside of that, you're still a Craigslist ad to them. So if it's a property manager, if your goal is to actually get a property manager same day, or within a week or two, but if your goal is, I really want to make this happen, I really want to get the business, then the solution to that is to go in person. And I will say, still to this day, multiple times a week, I have y'all reaching out to me, telling me you're about to put together your property manager packets. You've scheduled, Wednesday to go out and hand them all out. You're asking a bunch of questions. You're nervous. You're asking, what should I say if they ask me for hourly pricing or whatever? And I'm always letting y'all know, when it's all said and done, please email me and let me know how it went. I want to keep a good record, generally speaking, of how often those days result in a new client and how often they don't result in a new client. And what I find is if you put together 12 packets and you head out with 12 addresses, most of y'all, and by most I mean 90%, 9 out of 10, report back that they got at least one new client same day who sent them an actual job to go do same day, which means your foot is in that door. And 90% of y'all, you don't just report a minimum of 1 new client. Sometimes it's 2 or 3. Usually it's 1 or 2. But you also end up having 2 or 3 other clients who don't send you a job that day, but they do sit down and talk to you with a smile. They tell you that they're excited. They onboard you into their system so that they've got all your information literally in their computer system. And at that point, you're just waiting to receive a job if and when their current handyman starts dropping the ball. That's the usual. There is 1 in 10 who email me and say, hey, I went and did your thing. I went to 8 properties. Nobody was there. I only got to talk to 3 of them. They acted weird that I even showed up at the door without an appointment, and it didn't go well. That's 1 out of 10. The 9 out of 10 get at least 1 new client same day. Yeah, you can send a picture. I don't know that that really overcomes, you know, the entire not having met you in person. They want to know, do you curse a lot? You know, can people understand your voice? And also just how does it feel being in front of you? Are you giving them the stink eye all the time? Do you have a lazy eye that points off one direction and another eye pointing off another direction? Are you smelly? You know, those types of things too. Paul said, my property manager business came only from me meeting them in person. I mailed a bunch of packets, physical mail, and got a couple of email replies, but none of those resulted in new business. I never emailed packets, and I never phoned property managers. Paul said, I'm pretty sure that Mike Neal got new business through phone calls. Don't remember if they were property managers or not. Right on. Mike, if you're in here, you can... If anybody in here actually has done this, there's only 13 people, so probably not many people in here who have done my exact system. And, you know, I mean, again, like I said, it's not that the emails don't work. I got my property managers with emails and phone calls. But I was also very lucky. My property managers, it just so happened, the 2 biggest property managers I have today, my 2, like, call them my main clients, property management companies with multiple managers each. Both of those came at around the same time, and they came from emails, but both of them were in a position that it just so happened right when I emailed them, they had literally both just fired their one and only handyman. So I got very lucky with the timing and that I chose the right ones. And even they were very wary. Neither of them actually intended on working with me long term. They were just looking for really anybody to just catch up on some jobs. And luckily I did a good enough job that they're like, wait a minute. I think we want to keep you around. And I didn't know how to talk to them either. You know, we just had, I mean, the most unstructured. I wish I'd have had Bulletproof Handyman back in the day, but like just to help me guide me along, because my conversations were just stupid. You know, they call, they're like, hey, yeah, this is so and so from such and such company. I was calling about the email you sent me about the handyman services. And I'm like, oh, cool, what's up? And they're like, yeah, so, well, we just fired a guy and he was right in the middle of putting on these bars on the windows. So, you know, you have to drill into the brick wall to attach the bars. Basically, they're all off sitting in the yard, and we need somebody to go put them on because it's in a bad neighborhood. And, you know, the house is kind of not secure without them on. And I just went and did it, you know, but the point was they had to have me. And when they were trying to ask me about my pricing, you know, I'm just like, well, I got a $125 trip fee. If it's more than that, I'll call you. Not for that specific job. That's clearly a much bigger job. But they were asking about general pricing. I was like, my general pricing is $125 trip fee. And they're like, what are you per hour? And luckily, one of the few things I was smart enough to do back then is to not give hourly rates. And I said, well, I don't have an hourly rate because, you know, what that rate would be, that would heavily depend on whether it was like electrical work, plumbing work, unskilled labor versus skilled labor, inside versus outside. I don't really just have one rate. It's kind of job by job. And they didn't like that either, but they put up with it because they had to have me. And over time, they asked for hourly rates again, and I just always declined. But I was doing a good enough job, and my pricing, when the day was all said and done, was pricing that they could live with. Oh, hold on. Mike texted me. Mike said, well, let me see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, right on. Mike texted me, and he had a good point. He said his comment didn't show up here, but he's recommending my website because on my website, it's a good thing to mention, on my website I have some tools. I have the startup budget, like the Handyman business startup budget tool. That's going to help you figure out exactly what it's going to cost in whole dollar terms for everything you need to start your handyman business. And then I also have the hourly rate calculator, overhead/hourly rate calculator. It's another guided type of thing that when you're all said and done, it's basically going to tell you what you need to be billable at per hour on the job with tools in your hands, so that you can kind of set your income goals and your hourly, not hourly goals, but in terms of how many hours per week you want to be working. And you'll be able to figure out with that tool what your minimum, this is an internal hourly rate, not for your clients to know, but it'll help you figure out what your internal hourly rate needs to be, just so you know what you need to be charging on the job. There's the rate book builder, which helps you build out your rate book with all your pricing for all of your individual tasks. Lot of really great tools there. There's at the top of the website is what can a handyman do. Put your city in there and you'll get a report telling you basically what you can and can't do where you're at without some sort of contractor's license. And it'll give you lots of information on your business licensing, how much your state charges for LLC filing fee, lots of cool stuff like that. Tons of tools on there, man. Tons of tools. Harvey said morning. Good morning, Harvey. Paul's Handyman said, I've always been nervous face to face with people, never been a big people person. Oh, I fully understand that. And it's a hindrance in some ways, but they would rather meet you in person. For example, if you're nervous, first of all, people who are nervous are not intimidating. And that's another thing they don't want to send to their tenants' houses. They don't want to send somebody who's going to feel intimidating, somebody who's too aggressive, with shoulders too squared up, too in your face, bug-eyed, just way too intense. They don't want that. Tenants are not comfortable with that. If you're actually just a naturally nervous in-person kind of person, that's actually to your benefit. As long as you can still look them in the eye and confidently say, hey, I'll be your problem solver. You send me your problems and I'll solve them. As long as you can look them in the eye and say those words, the fact that you're nervous is just going to make them feel, it's going to be another check in the box of, hey, this guy is not a threat, and he's not going to feel threatening to the tenants. And don't get me wrong, it's okay to not go in person. I'm not saying you have to go in person. I'm just saying there are likely to not be any good arguments. If your goal is to get clients, there won't be any good arguments to say the best way to do it is to not go in person. The only good reason to not go in person is if you're like 6'10", 350 pounds of pure muscle, taking way too much testosterone, super aggressive looking, even if you're a big teddy bear on the inside, and your face is disfigured in a way that makes you look angry 24/7. Maybe that's a good time to not show up at the office in person, is if there's something about you that makes you seem overly aggressive and dangerous. But if that's not the case, and if the goal is to get clients, and I wouldn't send emails out or do packets if the goal wasn't to get clients. But if the goal is to get them, I promise you the way to do it, you'll have a new client same day, 9 out of 10 times anyways, 9 out of 10 of y'all will have one new property manager client with a job. When I say client, I mean they've sent you a job, not just onboarded you. You'll have that same day, 9 out of 10. If you just go through that system, put together your packets, pick up some cookies, get a haircut, clean your car, get ready to do the thing. You know, I'm super Asperger's, and I know y'all probably can't, well, some of y'all can tell that on the channel, but as far as the social aspects of autism, you know, I have taught myself how to be in the presence of other people, but I'll tell you what, when I'm done, man, I have to recover. I'm not a fan of eye contact with strangers. I can talk to a camera all day long, but I'm not a fan of sitting in front of a room of people and talking like I did in Austin last year when I got my first little paid speaking role, which hopefully I get to do again this year. I need to reach out about that soon. That was fun. But yeah, that's not my cup of tea. I don't like meeting strangers in person, honestly. I got enough people in my life already. You know what I mean? I'm not in a position where I'm trying to add more people who've met me in person to the list. I'm trying to minimize those numbers these days. Mike said, I did it all. I used packets, showed up in person, and did some cold calls. JD said, I took your $125 service fee and said a $25 to $75 per service after, and I have found that they really like this. I only do apartments, so it's never anything big. That's awesome. Max said, your website's been a huge help, and I thank you so much for your help. You're welcome, sir. Paul's Handyman said, I'm ADHD and squirrel relatively quickly. Right on, me too, brother. Me too. That's why I've ended up doing half the crazy shit I've ended up doing in life, is I'm ADHD, autistic, obsessed with the most random subjects at the most random times, can't help but to just dive into new special interests and absorb them top to bottom. It's why I'm doing all the stuff I'm doing with AI right now, is I can't stop. You know, I've got a Claude bot. I could be talking to my Claude bot right now, just planning out more business stuff. It's already being insanely useful. Very hard, well, not hard for a lot of people to set up, I'm sure. It was hard for me to set up, but I set mine up in a more manual way rather than an automated way, using ChatGPT on a DGX Spark running Ubuntu, which I don't know anything about. So I literally had to, you know, ChatGPT's like, paste this in the command line. And I'm like, it's probably not even called a command line, but ChatGPT's like, paste this in the command line. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. It's like, oh, just copy and paste it. No. I don't know how to bring up a command line. Well, I don't know how to make that appear. Where's it at? And it's like, well, what's your operating system? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything. I have a DGX Spark. I turned it on. I'm now on whatever the home screen is. And you have to teach me everything from here. And it proceeded to do so. It 100%, it went down some rabbit holes. Luckily, I'm getting good at recognizing when an AI is going down a rabbit hole. I don't need to have any expertise in the actual subject. I just literally like have a sixth sense where I can sense that my AI is going down a rabbit hole. And luckily, they're smart enough these days that I can usually say, hey, I think you're going down a rabbit hole right now. I don't think you know what you're talking about. I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to go research this software, this operating system, what commands are and are not available for this operating system. Update, just give yourself a little user's guide on how all this works. Come back, start from first principles from the very beginning, look at everything you did, figure out where you went wrong, and let's start over here. And usually they're smart enough to actually figure out how to do that. But, you know, that's what I do. I figure stuff out. That's what all handyman do, really. In the end, we're just troubleshooters, problem solvers. That's just what we do. And that's what I'm doing now, and I can't stop. It is impossible for me to stop. I would be a week ahead with my content and everything. Well, I'd be 4 days ahead if I wasn't buried in this 𝗪𝗪𝗟𝗪 that I'm messing with right now. Harvey said, the fact that you can talk about it means you understand how to handle it well. Great job. Keep up the good work. Jay Rory is back. Awesome. Paul's Handyman said, off topic, Ray, you might like the Sean Ryan show from the way you're talking. I watch Sean Ryan. I do. Sean Ryan is, man, I'll give him one thing. I'll give him a lot of things, actually. But one thing I will absolutely give Sean Ryan 100% is Sean Ryan is authentic. He is absolutely willing to lose audience in exchange for honesty and authenticity. He will talk about subjects that are not popular, that aren't, you know, as clickable as a podcast host might hope for their topics to be. But they'll talk about he will talk about those things in a very honest and authentic way. So I have a lot of respect for that man, especially with him trying to shut down all the money going to Afghanistan. Nothing pisses me off more than that. What we did, the way that we left, the mess that we left, the disrespect that gives to everybody who served there. I spent 3 years over there. Luckily, I was a civilian. I was a DOD contractor getting paid really well. But I grew to love all of the soldiers that I supported. We became family. Like, we became brothers. And there was a few hundred of them. And, you know, their wives left them. They didn't get to watch their kids grow up. Some of them got injured. Most of them just had their life fall apart, you know, and that's just as bad. What's worse, losing a couple fingers, having a big chunk taken out of your leg and having some pain and walking weird the rest of your life, or losing your wife and kid, you know? Because if you ask me that question, if I had to choose right now, lose a leg or lose my wife and kid, that's the easiest choice in the world, man. There's no way in hell I wouldn't trade a leg for my wife and kid. And these men had their lives destroyed. They spent, if you were in the Army, all the way from 2001 through 2000, I don't know, say from 2001 to 2021, if you were in the Army during that entire period of time, that 20-year span, you most likely spent more than half of your entire career not living at home with your family. Your kids spent half of their childhood without you. And it was for these bullshit wars. You know, it's not that they didn't have a good reason maybe to get kick-started. I'm not going to dive into the politics of that. But it don't take 20 years. It does not take 20 years. And the way we left Afghanistan was so disgraceful. And then now we pay the Taliban millions of dollars a week. The same people we spent 20 years fighting, we turned tail and ran like a bunch of little babies, ran out of there in the most embarrassing way possible on the world stage. And now we give them like 40 million a week or whatever the number is now. But yeah, Sean Ryan will turn you on to that. Sean Ryan's got some great people. He's got that one guy, I can't remember his name now, but he's been on the show a couple times, that's real big into helping track down all of these child trafficking networks and stuff. So real big kudos to that. And that's what I mean, like, those aren't the most clickable topics for the average American, but they're important to Sean Ryan, and he does what he believes in. So yeah, I recommend Sean Ryan. Paul's Handyman said, but I get not being able to stop, and I get jumping from project to project. It takes a lot of self-discipline, man. I still don't have it fully. I'm trying to build it and learn it every day still. Harvey said, I've seen the 𝗪𝗪𝗟𝗪 advertised. I'm thinking about getting it. It's very cool. You gotta be careful with it. It's very dangerous, but it's very cool. Paul's Handyman said, okay, gotta run. You have an excellent day. You too. Earthling said, good morning. You're already making serious and good points. Thanks. All right, got the coffee all finished up. Biggest problem for me these days, I don't have time to watch anybody anymore. And I get angry about it because, you know, the world is moving so fast. that it's no longer possible to keep up with it, just knowledge-wise. It's literally, if your only goal was just simply to have a good grasp on all of the important things that are happening that you should have a good grasp on, hypothetically speaking, as a voter, as a parent, as a citizen, whatever. If your only job was just to have a good grasp on everything, that's not even possible anymore. Forget about having a job and running a business, running a YouTube channel, raising kids, planning on buying a ranch and stuff. Forget about all of that. Like, if all I wanted to do was just understand all of the important things that I should understand, there's not enough time for that anymore. And that's crazy. Every day I get notifications on my phone from YouTubers that I respect, that I trust, that have taught me an immense amount of just everything, of all the different things I'm interested in that I try to keep up with. Every day, there's probably 6 hours worth of YouTube content that if I could ingest it, I would. And I just don't have time to. It's crazy. Like, I have to choose between, do I create what I'm creating, or do I learn and understand the world around me? You know, and if you don't do enough of one, then you fail at the other. Well, if you don't do enough understanding anyways, it doesn't go both directions. If I don't create, I'm not going to fail at learning. But if I don't learn what's going on around me, if I don't put enough time into figuring out where AI is going and how to use it, if I don't put enough time into trying to understand the situation with Iran and China and Russia and Venezuela and Mexico and Cuba, Canada, all of this, there's so much to be understood. And there's so many huge things changing daily on the world stage. I guess you don't have to be caught up with it, but the idea of not understanding what's going on out there just feels scary to me. Maybe it's a fear thing, I don't know, but I really don't like the idea of me just sort of casually going through life, showing up at my job, doing what I'm told, paying my bills, going to the park on the weekend. That, I mean, I guess ignorance is bliss, but, you know, then 4 years later, you get caught off guard with major changes to the entire world stage and how society functions. And you don't know how to react to it, and you don't know what caused it, and you don't know where to go or what to do, because you weren't paying attention as it all built up and went down anyways. So I put a lot of effort into trying to do that, but it means I have no time. You know, my day starts when I start this hike with y'all. I wouldn't call this work because I enjoy it. I'm doing it partly for my health. I'm doing it partly for my weight, in a health way, but also in a just like, I don't want to look fat kind of way. I'm also doing it because, you know, I need to live stream. It's part of what I do on this channel. It's part of the Bulletproof Handyman business, I don't know, mode of operations. We do live streams. That's what we do. We're a community. And I can't do it in the evening because I'm trying to spend the evenings with my kids. So I live stream in the morning. So my day starts about 5 a.m. Usually I wake up. I'm usually hiking and live streaming with y'all by 6. And then I'm working all day. I'm at that computer almost all day, every day, unless I have to go look at jobs and stuff too. But I'm just working nonstop through the entire day. Partly on the Quadbot, partly on content, partly on the website, partly on building new digital tools, partly on, you know, I might just be talking to ChatGPT for 3 hours, but it's work because I'm trying to actually sincerely plan like a system to get y'all business plans, real business plans, like legit, presentable to a bank to get a business loan kind of business plans that I can automate on the website for y'all. I'm just working nonstop. Today, when I have a meeting with my biggest client today, like a Zoom meeting at, I think it was 11, might be 10 or 11, I've got a meeting with my biggest handyman client, like my business's biggest client. And it's going to be very uncomfortable. There's always things they want from me that I can't give them because you give an inch and they take a mile. You start letting them tell you how to run your business, and before you know it, they want to treat you and pay you like an employee. So that's just going to be a whole other thing I got to do today. But I start hiking and streaming around 6, and I'm not done working. I mean, not even breaks, really. I'm not done working until, last night was almost 9. That was a rare, different kind of night. But until 6 or 7, I put in a full 12 hours. And then after 6 o'clock, I'm trying to get time in with my kids. I'm trying to catch up on the news. I'm trying to figure out, do I have any time to listen to even one podcast? I have to start whittling down which influencers I feel do the best job of giving me not only accurate information, but condensing it down into something that I have time to listen to, which is teaching me a lesson actually about my content, because I often do very long videos. And if you've noticed, I'm doing a lot more 15 to 30 minute videos these days, whereas I used to do a lot of hour to hour and a half long videos, because I know a lot of y'all do have jobs and you don't have time to listen to me ramble for an hour and a half just to get 20 minutes worth of information. If you have time for that, you do the live streams. Paul's Handyman, thanks for coming. Harvey said, I'm into woodworking more. I have a metal shop and I have to insulate it and add electric. It's a slow process and the world doesn't stop. That's true. Harvey said, not being informed is the most terrifying thing to me. I agree. Unvaxxed Chad said, you don't listen while you work. Well, the work I do is mental work. I don't do a lot of physical work anymore. I'm not on the handyman job with handyman tools and handyman materials doing handyman work. When I do that, yes, back then, that was where I got so much of my education, was being able to just listen. Audiobooks all day, every day. Podcasts all day, every day. But now I'm doing mental work. So I'm trying to track, numbers and plans and structures and paths in my head. I'm trying to analyze data. I'm trying to collaborate with, one of many different AIs that I'm using for so many different things now. And I have it on, like I can hit play, but I don't hear anything because I'm focused on my work. It's not just physical work where I can just listen and let my body take over, the physical movements. I have to use my brain to do what I do, which means my brain's got to choose. I'm either focused on what I'm building, or I'm focused on building digitally, or I can focus on the content, but not both. Harvey said, that's what I'm doing, listening while I'm working. Yeah, if I'm painting a house, for 5 days, I'm absolutely listening to 5 days worth of content, 100%. If I'm at a tenant's house even, depends on what the job is, but if I'm at a tenant's house, especially if that tenant is not near me, so if I go into the kitchen to work on the sink and they head back to the living room, I put my earbuds in and, keep listening. If they hang around me, then, I take my earbuds out just in case. I don't want to come off as rude, but I'm not doing that anymore. Everything I'm doing pretty much takes place at my computer, and it's all day, every day. Another good reason I have to do these hikes is because I sit at a computer all day now. But yeah, I can't truly listen and work at the same time. I have to choose one or the other. Otherwise, I'm just going to do a less good job at what I'm building, or I'm going to do a zero job at actually hearing and understanding what the podcast or audiobook is saying. It's been a nice hike today. The sun's not up yet. I'm not too sweaty. God, I'm not looking forward to the temperature change. I can't believe spring is here already, for Arizona anyways. It's springtime, like it or not. The heat is on. Harvey said, my job is sort of mundane and it's brain muscle memory. Yeah, that's what most of what I've always done has been. Even running, even modifying planes. I used to do avionics That's the job I quit to start my handyman business. Actually, I was installing a lot of weather radars and navigation systems and stuff on business jets. And even that job, which is fairly technical, but you know, once you figure out that you've got to run these 8 wires, you know, 30 feet from here to there, and that is a lot of work, right? That's a day right there to run 8 wires 30 feet, depending on, you know, what kind of plane you're working on and what bundles they have to go through and what bulkheads they have to cross through and how many terminations through different bulkheads there are. But you know, once you've taken the focused time to figure out that that's your task, that's still a job that you can put together in such a way that once you're ready, you're just sitting down running wires. And running wires is running wires. You know, you can listen to whatever you want to listen to when you're just running wires. That's a job I could do the rest of my life if I didn't have to put up with bosses and supervisors and co-workers and maybe planes. Not a big fan of planes either, but maybe you just cut the wall of the plane out, ship it to my house, and ask me to put my audiobook in and run wires through that plane fuselage. That'd be a decent job right there. I actually like simple, repeatable, physical work. That's the best time to think. That's where I thought up this channel. You know, I was doing a lot of handyman work. Literally the day that I filmed the first video, y'all go back and watch my first video, January 20th, 3 years ago, sitting in a truck, literally waiting on primer to dry. Like actually, not exaggerating, waiting on primer to dry. When you're doing things like that, you just have so much time to think and to plan. And that's actually when and where and how I came up with this channel and decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on it. These walks are getting good for me, man. I can feel it in my bones. Hard said spring's coming here also. Maybe one more cold snap. Yep, that's me. This is probably the last cold snap right now. And it's not even cold. I mean, as you can see, I'm not wearing a long sleeve shirt or anything, so it's not even that cold. But we're about to have a little cold snap, I think starting today or tomorrow, which means it'll probably get windy briefly, and I think it'll be our last one. And that just means we're gonna be in the 40s, you know. I guess we are already, but we'll be in the lower 40s instead of the upper 40s, ever so briefly. Any of y'all that have showed up since I've said this last time, Next Insurance has officially committed to sponsoring the next HCC 2026 Texas, which is going to be a barracks style, calling it a bunkhouse weekend in Texas. It's going to be at Bonham State Park, a little northeast of Dallas, I guess. Bonham State Park. I'll have bunkhouses that can fit up to 94 people. I'm gonna literally reserve that today. Like when I get home, I'll be calling and making a bigger payment than I really want to make right now, especially since it's just a verbal approval. But I trust Next Insurance. They have done this many, many times now. This will be either the 3rd or the 4th cabin stay / camp out / whatever that they've sponsored for this channel. So I trust them when they give me a verbal. But that's approved, so y'all will see by the end of the day today, I bet y'all should see that camp out posted on the events tab at bulletproofhandyman.com. And you should also see the next workflow webinar where I take you through my software and show you how I manage my business workflow anyways inside Jobber. And I need to set up another AI in the trades webinar, which, my God, I need to rewrite half the thing now because it's been 2 months and the whole world has changed. So, got a lot to do today. Still need to film the same video that I've been saying for a week that I still need to film. The outline's basically done. I'll touch up the outline for like 30 minutes before I film just to tweak it to my voice or whatever, but that's essentially done. I just need to film the damn thing. Got the meeting with the property manager. I'll let y'all know how that goes tomorrow, I'm sure. I really have to decide. I mean, I haven't talked about this much, but today is the day that I have to decide whether or not to keep that client, because I feel confident that if I don't fulfill, there's certain requests they have. I'm not going to talk about them in public, but there's certain requests they have that if I don't fulfill those requests, they'll probably drop me as a vendor, as much as they don't want to. They've threatened to drop me as a vendor before, and when they have, I've said, hey, it's been real and it's been fun. You know, this has been a great time. Unfortunately, I can't change my business just for one client, but I really appreciate the time we had. And then they go, no, we're not, never mind. That's not what we meant. I have a feeling today, though, I think they've gotten enough other vendors in place that they can afford to let me go. And I have to decide, am I willing to, you know, how much am I willing? There's compromising, right? There's actual just like making deals and compromising and coming to good business agreements. And then there's just letting your clients tell you how to run your business, as if your business is their business and you're just an extension of them. And I think that's the biggest issue, is most of these property management companies, most guys who are working as a handyman for one property management company, they're only working for that one company, and they're staying busy enough for them anyways, to be happy. And they're just sort of on call almost, whatever you need. And that's not me. And, you know, I'm going to have to try to explain this to them today, where I'm going to have to say, you know, my business is not even just doing handyman work for property managers. Like my total revenue for my entire LLC or whatever, like all of the whole thing that I do in life day by day, your revenue is maybe 20%. The revenue I get from you is maybe 20% of the total revenue that I get, give or take, you know, whatever. Numbers go up and down over time, but still maybe 20%. And the point is, am I willing to change the way my business does business for one client who composes 20% of my business? So we'll see what happens. I don't want to lose them, that's for sure. I really don't. They're a good client to have in terms of they send a lot of work and they don't complain about my prices, and they pay the invoices. They love sending me move-outs, and I love move-outs. Move-outs are just, they're so much better than occupied properties. So they are a good client to have. The question is, are they good enough for me to change the way I do business in one way or in 3 ways or in 5 ways? Where's that compromise to be found? We'll see. Oh man, I could have been arriving at the Daytona 300 today, by the way. Jobber offered to fly me there and put me up in a hotel and reimburse me for a rental car and everything to participate in some Daytona 300 activity that Jobber's doing. And I can't. Well, for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is me and Emily have a date on the 13th for like a orchestra, like candlelit orchestra and dinner type of thing that we set up around Christmas time. And we've been looking forward to, and you know, it was too last minute. We could have probably rescheduled the candlelight dinner, could have put it on the 10th or the 16th or whatever, but it's too late now. I could have been arriving at Daytona 300 today with Jobber. Almost home. This has been a great hike. I don't know why specifically this one. They're all good hikes, but really this has been a super nice hike. I think it's because I was up a little earlier. I headed out earlier. It was a little cooler. And it was mostly in the dark, and I like the dark. I like the cold, and I like the dark. Harvey said, the thing I would think about is, can I absorb that loss? And is there an opportunity to increase that revenue that was lost? Well, Harvey, what I would say, this is where some things get weird. I've passed a particular precipice with this channel where, how do I put it? Oh, what's the word? There's a word that I'm trying to find. Focused time spent on this channel pays better than the handyman business, if that makes any sense. Doesn't just mean anytime. Live streaming doesn't pay better than the handyman business, and making an average video doesn't pay better. But I'm at a point with YouTube and with my community and with my sponsors where at this point, focused time spent on this business, on the handyman YouTube channel, Bulletproof Handyman project, pays better than the actual handyman work of the handyman business. And what that means for me is it would actually be financially beneficial to me to shut down the handyman business, but then I'm not a handyman, right? I don't really have any authority to talk about it if I'm not still in it and making it happen and billing and negotiating with clients and keeping my finger on the pulse. I could do it, and I've thought about doing it, and many of y'all, especially the ones who've met me in person, really think that I should shut down the handyman business itself to focus on the YouTube. But right now I'm in a position where I haven't done that. I'm keeping the business, partly for authority, but also partly because YouTube could just shut my channel down tomorrow. And if they do, I need to be able to dive right back into full-time handyman work, which I think I would enjoy for some time, just because I do enjoy doing handyman work. But yeah, for now it's important that now, don't get me wrong, I have my other large client and they're not gonna fire me for sure. And I would still maintain the authority, but I would lose the revenue in a way, but I also just wouldn't have much work for Sean, and I want to keep Sean busy too. I told Sean I'd try to keep him busy. So there's a lot to think about. But as far as losing the revenue, really what that would do is open up time. I would end up making more money if I lost them, because I would now have more time to do the things that are truly profitable. Hassam said, Iran or Israel do you like? I don't like either in the moment. If I had to really pick, though, I would say that there's a better chance that I would like, let's not call it Iran, let's say after the Muslim Iranian government collapses and is gone, and when Iran returns to the Persians, and it's run as a Persian empire, country, whatever you want to call it, I probably like Persians more than I like Israelis. But it depends on which Israelis we're talking about. I don't like either of them so far. Harvey said, so you have it covered, then I would say, how much do you wish to keep that customer happy or just move on? Yeah, I mean, they're a backup, they're a safety net. They're a small piece of a bigger puzzle, but they are an important piece. So we'll see how the meeting goes. It's going to depend a lot on their attitude and if they're asking or demanding. For me, that's always a big deal. Are you asking me for something, or are you threatening to stop working with me if I don't provide that particular something? That makes a big difference too. So we'll see, but I'll update y'all tomorrow. Oh, Harvey said having an employee changes every decision. I would say let the employee be the on-call person. He's not an employee, he's a subcontractor. I don't need to be on call. I like to keep him busy though. I try to send him plenty of work, because as long as I can send him plenty of work, he's going to continue to prioritize my jobs. But the moment I don't have enough work to keep him busy, that's going to force him to go find more of his own clients, and then those jobs are going to start taking priority over mine. Mine are going to go to the back burner. My clients are going to sense that, and it's all downhill from there. All right, guys, well, we're home. There's that big, beautiful flag up there. I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see y'all on the next one.